What's good, ladies and gents? My name is Lee Kaysen, and this is Nightscape Tech. Today, I'll be reviewing the OnePlus 7 Pro's camera from a more professional photographer's point of view, and I'll be showing how it'll function in a photo shoot. I'll be reviewing the raw, unprocessed images as well as post-processed images, and I'll be talking about my experiences with the camera as a whole. I will be reviewing both the original camera firmware, the post-update camera firmware that just most recently came out, as well as the Google Camera APK. I won't be doing an exact side-by-side comparison of post, current, and Gcam to compare the sharpness and all that, but more so give an experience of how each camera software update or change has helped me use the camera in a more professional setting. Normally, I shoot on my Sony a7 III, but I did take a few photo shoots with the OnePlus 7 Pro as my main camera just so I could kind of get a feel of how it would perform in a real-world scenario. These are just my opinions on the OnePlus 7 Pro as of now, but I would like to give my opinions on what I think that OnePlus could do to improve the camera over the next year or so. Other than that, let's jump right in. This image was one of the first in my photo shoots with the OnePlus 7 Pro's original camera firmware. In fact, it is one of the biggest examples of why the original firmware was such a disappointment to me. The edge detection was pretty good with an accurate, but not too clinical tracing around the subject. However, the colors were mediocre to start, but they did give a decent springboard for my later edits. The glaring issue, however, is the lack of detail. When zooming into the face of my subject, there is a noticeable smoothing effect across the face and hair, places where you would want the most detail. Even after editing, there is a decent amount of noise in the photo that noise correction couldn't fix. Overall, it wasn't an impressive first image. This image is actually very impressive. This was also taken on the original camera firmware, but was using the Nightscape option. Even in the darkness, it turned out very well. Even on the original, there is still a good amount of sharpness and good amount of clarity to the image. All I did was boost the whites and bring down the blacks and then increase the teal values, and I actually had an image that I really liked. Towards the top it is a bit soft, but overall a very good image. This image was captured on the OnePlus 7 Pro's ultra wide angle lens. Generally speaking, the ultra wide angle lens, despite having a 16 megapixel resolution, is very soft. The colors on it are nice and they're not too washed out, and after applying a preset, they have a very nice tone to them. But overall, the biggest letdown is that sharpness. So when you zoom in, the image doesn't retain a whole lot of detail, but like I said, the colors are really nice and do kind of make up for the lack of sharpness. This is a very Instagrammable image, but not one that I would necessarily want to print. This image is the saving grace of portrait mode. Even from the get-go, the one thing the OnePlus 7 Pro did very well was the edge detection in portrait mode. It's even better post-update. This image shows it has no issue discerning from the face in the background and the back of my friend's head in the foreground. The sharpness here is much improved with a good amount of data remaining in the hair and shirt. With a few edits to the sharpness and texture within Lightroom, the detail is really brought out. The skin tones are a tad pink in the original image, but the edits really helps bring them down and give the hair and skin an overall very pleasing color palette. The post-update camera firmware also brought a much improved ultra-wide camera. The sharpness of the new one was significantly better than before. Both images taken on the wide angle that I've shown were taken in different locations but with similar amounts of light. The newer one, however, retains way more detail. The colors, however, went from being a bit washed out to heavily oversaturated. The skin tones are noticeably very pink and inaccurate to the scene in real life. A few edits, however, fixed this. The stylistic choice to desaturate the overemphasized blues really fits my aesthetic and shows that the files retain enough information to push it in post. This is where things get very interesting. This image was taken on the Google Camera APK. One thing that you'll notice first is the much improved detail in the photo, but the very obvious lack of color. The Gcam can be calibrated to different saturation levels, but a clean install heavily desaturates them. However, I actually like this desaturated image. This flat image plays very nicely with my custom preset I've decided to call Amber. If you follow my Instagram, @LeeKason1, you'll see that this preset is used on a large amount of my photos. With the Gcam, the color silence suits the preset perfectly and is usually a one and done application, unlike my usual phone photos which require many more tweaks to match my feed. The sharpness over the other images is the most exciting part of the image. In similar lighting situations, the main camera on the stock software is much softer. These next images really highlight the weaknesses of the OnePlus 7 Pro's stock camera app. Despite the wins that we've just looked at, the stock photo in this set was taken on the most up-to-date camera firmware, and one of the biggest things that is going to jump out is the lack of detail. But the most disappointing part was this was taken in midday where the photos are usually tack sharp. The edited image seems okay color-wise, but no edit can fix such a blatant lack of detail. I took a picture of these flowers to do just one direct comparison to the stock and Gcam softwares. As you can see here, the Gcam version, while less saturated, holds a much higher amount of detail, and the edited Gcam image has a much more moody vibe thanks to its more desaturated nature. After experiencing such good results lately with the OnePlus 7 Pro's stock camera app, this was a very big kick to the shins. These images no way define the camera as a whole, as this was just one incident, but just goes to show that the camera can be very inconsistent even on the new software. OnePlus has a long way to go in improving this camera for the consumers, and I hope that they do so. This concludes my direct commentary on the photos, but I'll still roll a few more examples where you can see the trends further demonstrated on different images without my input. Stay tuned for my final thoughts though. Alright guys, that was my review of the OnePlus 7 Pro from a professional photographer's point of view. Before I end, I'd like to talk about a few things I think OnePlus could do to improve the camera over time for the consumer. By no means do I think that this is a bad camera. In fact, I think it gets a B+ or a low A- score, with the iPhone XS, the Google Pixel 3, and the Samsung Galaxy S10 being somewhere in the A+ regions of 95% or above. I think the OnePlus has a good base startup, it's got good hardware, and the software is showing signs of improvement, but there's just a few little tweaks that if I were OnePlus, I'd do. The biggest thing that the OnePlus can't do, as well as the other flagship cameras, is the ability to take super crisp photos. So one thing that the Google Pixel is really known for is good HDR and super sharp photos. The OnePlus 7 Pro actually has a pretty decent HDR algorithm, but what they lack in compared to Google is the ability to take super sharp photos. I think if I were OnePlus, I'd improve the algorithm with the low light abilities and the sharpening that's added in the post-processing of the image capture. I also think that OnePlus could give us a little bit more control over what we shoot on the video side. So right now you can only shoot with the main camera and the telephoto lens, but I think that the ultra wide angle camera would really benefit video. So having like an ultra wide view on your video side. And I also think that giving us more control of on the manual camera. So the manual camera is actually only available for photos, but not for video. Other than that, guys, I think that the OnePlus 7 Pro is definitely worth the money at a price of $699 for this Nebula Blue option with 256GB of storage and 8GB of RAM. I do really think that it's worth it. The camera was a little bit of a letdown at the beginning, but I do think that it's showing enough signs of improvement that overall I can give this a recommendation. Would I be using this every day in a pro level scenario? Absolutely not. And I do think that it could be a little bit better for everyday life scenarios. But as you guys can see, with a little bit of tweaking and editing, the photos turn out pretty good. Other than that, guys, I'm going to bring this video to a close, and don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel as it really helps me out. Once again, I'm Lee Kason, and this is RiceCube Tech.